Good morning or good afternoon to everyone who joined us on our webinar. My name is Ivaylo Ivanov and I'm a VMware engineer at Runecast. I'm here with our CEO Stan Markov, and today we're going to talk about VDI and VMware Horizon in particular. More specifically, we will cover how you can minimize configuration issues in your Horizon deployment using the power of Runecast Analyzer. This is going to be our agenda. With large infrastructures and rapidly growing virtual environments, we cannot stay on top of the things without introducing some kind of automation. Therefore, first we'll discuss the challenges with automating Horizon environment. After that, we'll have a quick conceptual intro from Stan about Runecast, what we do, and what problems we solve. We'll then take a look on how you can analyze your Horizon infrastructure with Runecast Analyzer and get the most out of it. We'll discuss some particular examples, and throughout the webinar, you can post your questions in the Q&A section.
I just wanted to say hi from me as well. This is Stan, and I will be looking at the questions section, so feel free to post anything there, and I'll make sure to answer.
Thank you, Stan. Oh, let's move forward. Unlike other products in the VMware portfolio, such as vCenter Server, NSX, vSAN, and many others, Horizon is much more limited in terms of SDK and API to consume. The only VMware documentation about integration and automation with Horizon describes how its API can be utilized with Power CLI. As opposed to the standard vSphere Power CLI modules, the plain Horizon Power CLI module contains only two commands, or the so-called CMDLETs: connect HV server and disconnect HV server. Once you connect to Horizon Connection Server, you have access to the whole Horizon API. But out of the box, there are no commands to retrieve directly info about, let's say, desktop pools, machines, farms, and so on. Here is an example of how you would get connection server data. So first you can use the connect HV server command to initiate your connection with the connection server. Then we can extend the extension data, so we can have access to all the services provided by the connection server. After that, we can use the method connection server list, and in this particular case, we'll store the information about all connection servers in a single replication group into con server variable. And well, after that, we can continue working with it, check its properties or whatever we need to do. And at the end, we'll have to disconnect from the connection server. This may seem like too much of overhead, especially if you haven't used it before. To help you get started, I recommend you get familiar with the Horizon Helper module created and maintained by the VMware community. It's available on GitHub, so you can download it, follow the instruction, and set it up. This module will hide a big chunk of the complexity and allow you to use commands like get hvpool for retrieving the information about all desktop pools in your Horizon environment, get HV machine, which will return you all machines which are managed by this Horizon instance, get farms, and many, many more. Also, you can pass additional filters as a parameters to those objects, so you can get only the information that you need. Important note regarding the Horizon API utilization with Power CLI is that the Horizon module is not supported in Power CLI core at the moment. So in order to use it, you need to run PowerShell directly on Windows. So with that said, we'll move forward, and I'll let Runecast CEO Stanimir Markov to introduce you Runecast Analyzer, and after that we'll cover some specific Horizon use cases.
All right, so we introduced Horizon integration in Runecast Analyzer just recently, and some of you might have already noticed it. I know that some of you already know about Runecast Analyzer, but let me give a quick preview for all of you, including those that never heard of Runecast before. So what Runecast Analyzer is, first of all, the reason why we developed Runecast is that we had to troubleshoot and firefight a lot of VMware issues on daily basis for many, many years. And in over 90% of the cases, when we were looking for the root cause, we ended up reading a knowledge base article or some other online source that was describing a known issue or a best practice violation. And that's when we got the idea that we can just use all that information, which is human readable, and it's available online, and it's continuously updated, and automatically create rules that can analyze continuously the configuration and logs of vSphere and discover potential problems before they cause some major outages. So that's how Runecast was born over 3 years ago. And it is now shipped as a virtual appliance, which is deployed on premises. So it's a 1 gig OVA that you can download, deploy in your infrastructure, and you can connect it to your vCenters, NSX managers, or Horizon connection servers to get all the necessary data for analysis. It can actually work in completely offline mode. So if you have extremely secure environment where you cannot allow any connections to the internet, even over a proxy, that's not a problem for Runecast Analyzer. It has a completely offline capability. So all the logic, all the rule sets, and everything is contained within that OVA, within that appliance. Of course, there are new known issues that are documented out there. So it's good to update your appliance from time to time. If you're in completely dark side, secure side, you can just use the offline update option. So you can download a file from your runecast.com profile and apply the update to the Runecast Analyzer appliance. So to get the latest known issues out there and the latest updates of the code as well. Or if you can allow Runecast Analyzer to connect to the internet, it can automatically download the online updates from the Runecast Central repository continuously. We have an internal platform which we use for crawling all this human readable available data online, mainly from the VMware knowledge base, but from many other sources like security hardening guides, social media, best practices. We do look at social media as well, because a lot of the known issues that occur out there before they're actually recognized or documented officially by the vendor, they first appear in some forums or some blog articles. So that's also a very useful source of information. As we moved forward with the product, we added even more sources of information. So the Runecast Analyzer, especially within the last year, was quite enriched in functionality when it comes to security. So we added several really important security standards, like DISA-STIC, HIPAA, and PCI DSS. Runecast Analyzer is doing really comprehensive configuration analysis based on those security standards. So it's really useful for you to not only harden your environment, but have a peace of mind when you have an audit. All right, let's now move on to the online demo. And I just want to show you directly how this looks like. So this is the web interface that you're going to see once you deploy Runecast Analyzer. Again, it's just a virtual appliance, so it shouldn't take you more than a few minutes to deploy it, set up the IP address, and then you can log in with the default username and password. Of course, if it's the first time that you're logging into the appliance, you are not going to see much information on the main dashboard. So the first step for you is to go to Settings and to connect to all the endpoints, vCenter servers, NSX managers, or Horizon connection servers. In most cases, you need just read-only accounts, especially for over about 95% of the checks that Runecast Analyzer performs can be done with the read-only account. As mentioned previously, Runecast Analyzer analyzes not only the configuration, but also the logs. So in order to point your ESXi hosts to send their logs via syslog to Runecast Analyzer, you can either do it manually, or you can simply use the log analysis section of the settings, and you can check those checkboxes here for all of your ESXi hosts, and this will add the IP address or host name of the Runecast Analyzer as a destination for your syslogs. These are really the only two steps that you need to do once you deploy Runecast Analyzer, and you can already look into the results. So it will encourage you to configure configuration analysis on daily basis. You can even have it on hourly basis, or you can trigger it manually from here, clicking on the Analyze Now button. The log analysis happens in real time automatically. So anytime when there is a log pattern that is detected to be problematic and it links back to a known issue from the VMware knowledge base, you will be alerted in the product. What we're looking at now is the main dashboard, and here you're going to see really a high-level view of the most important information about the health of your environment. So you can see how many critical, major, medium, and low issues were detected based on the last scan, how many issues were found in the logs, in the configuration, what's the level of security compliance, and the level of best practice adoption. For those of you that are familiar with older version of Runecast Analyzer, you probably remember that it will show you only the snapshot of your health of your VMware environment based on the latest scan. Since version 2, we introduced historical data as well. So you can actually see what was the security alignment trend or best practice adoption, what kind of issues you had in the past, maybe some issues you solved or some issues appeared along the way. In fact, you can use that functionality in a very good way. If you go to All Issues view, you can do a comparison between two different scans, and you can see what kind of new issues appeared or what kind of problems you have solved. New issues can appear either because you made some configuration changes, or maybe there are some known issues that were documented out there in the knowledge base or some other sources that were not there before. So this is really useful, not only for you to see what configuration changes happened in your environment, but in case you are really concerned with security and you have to adhere to some specific security standard, you can look at your security compliance posture and even provide it to an auditor to prove, for example, security compliance for a certain period of time, let's say for the last year. So that is pretty useful. Now let's just dive into maybe one specific issue that was detected. First of all, let me show you that you can filter out very easily the problems or potential issues that are in your environment. For example, I want to see only those that apply to virtual machines, and maybe I want to see those that are related to performance. So I see that I have two issues based on the last scan. If I expand the first one here, it talks about poor TCP performance that may occur on Linux virtual machines that have LRO enabled. The solution is right here in the actual knowledge base article, because this the source of this known issue of this knowledge is coming from the VMware knowledge base. And it, of course, describes how to solve the problem and also what is the root cause and the reason for the problem. What is very important is the findings subtab, because this one will show you what are the affected objects and the reason why they were reported as misaligned or misconfigured. So here we see a host and a virtual machine that have advanced settings that correspond to the problematic settings that are described in the knowledge base article. So VMXNet hardware LRO status is set to enabled. The host version is within the affected range. We have virtual machine also with the VMXNet 3 network driver and with Linux operating system. So as you can notice here, the product is doing very complex analysis. We have patent pending rules engine, which isolates a number or a group of objects within your inventory that corresponds to certain conditions and are interdependent. So this host is dependent on this virtual machine because this VM runs on that host, and they both correspond to those conditions that are described in the knowledge base article. That's why this is accurately reported as a potential issue that may be happening at the moment, or there is a risk of it happening anytime soon. Okay, before I hand it over back to Ivo, I just wanted to show you also the security hardening section. So here's where you can see a report on your current security compliance posture. So for every security standard, we not only develop the technical checks that correspond to the guidelines for from HIPAA, PCI DSS, or DISA-STIC, but we also described why a specific technical check satisfies a specific control or guideline from that security compliance guidelines. So this is really important. It's quite a key differentiator because it can really help you to give you the essential information that you need anytime that you're dealing with an audit. You can directly present a report from Runecast Analyzer, which not only describes technically how you are compliant, but also how those technical settings and checks correspond to the actual standard. Of course, anywhere around the product, you can do exports in CSV, PDF, or in clipboard. So that is also quite useful to just send over to somebody, security team, for example, or management. All right, with that initial introduction of Runecast Analyzer, I want to hand it over to Ivo. So this webinar is focused on Horizon. So we're going to look at some examples and how to connect to the Horizon connection servers as well.
Thank you, Stan. Now that you're familiar with the concept of Runecast and how you can avoid configuration issues in your vSphere environment, let's cover the Horizon part in more details. Let's move to the settings page. Here under connections, we have Horizon connection settings, where you can initiate connection to your Horizon environment. You can connect to Horizon connection server directly or to a load balancer. Something to mention here is that we support Horizon version 6 and 7 as well. If you choose to point to connection server, only one connection server per replication group is required. You don't need to add the rest of the connection servers, and in fact, Runecast Analyzer will not let you do so as they are all part of the same replication group. If you choose to connect via load balancer, make sure it's configured for session persistence. Otherwise, you may experience connectivity issues. This is a good time to note actually that Runecast Analyzer does not require any agents or additional configuration from your side on any part of your Horizon environment in order for it to be analyzed. All you need is to provide the address of your connection server or load balancer and user account with permissions on the root access group. The default read-only row is enough for your service account. Once you initiate the connection, you'll see it listed over here. For each Horizon connection, you will also see the status of the related vCenter servers. If the vCenter server is already added to Runecast Analyzer, it will be marked with a check mark, and if not, you'll be able to initiate connection to that vCenter directly from this context. As you can see here, for my HVDev Horizon environment, I have 3 related vCenter servers, meaning that those vCenters are right in Horizon, and I can provision to any of those. And I have Bellatrix and DevStar marked with the check mark, as I already have them here in Runecast Analyzer. And I'm missing Procyon A, which my Horizon environment knows about it, and it is connected to it, but it's not part of the Runecast configuration. I can initiate the connection wizard directly from here, provide the username and password, and connect to that vCenter. Runecast can analyze Horizon on its own without connection to the related vCenter servers. However, we strongly recommend you to add all vCenter servers which are configured in Horizon. The main reason is that some misconfigurations that may affect Horizon users could be in fact related to the underlying vSphere infrastructure. Horizon on its own have limited information about vSphere. Data such as cluster configuration, ESXi patch level, VM hardware or advanced settings cannot be retrieved directly from Horizon. When you add the related vCenters to Runecast, you enable us to correlate your Horizon and vSphere environments and look for misconfiguration that involve both layers. Now that you have configured connection to your Horizon, you can simply analyze it. I'll switch to the inventory view so we can really briefly review it. Here we can see a tree structure of all vCenter server and Horizon connection. The main Horizon objects are split by categories, which we can expand and see all the objects underneath. So we have connection servers. So in this particular case, under this HVDev Horizon connection, I have 2 connection servers, which are part of the same replication group. I have a farm with a single RDS host. I have a few pools, even less machines provisioned, and I also have a security server. On the right-hand side, you can see the number of issues for each of those objects, which are shown in the inventory. Now let's go to the all issues view and look at some example of reported issues. So from here, I can easily filter by product, so we can focus only on the Horizon issues. That's our main topic for today. Let's review one of our best practices for disable hot plug capability for VDI machines. Obviously, we don't want our end user to accidentally remove their network card, for example. The details section of this best practice states that virtual network adapters and other devices can appear as removable in the guest operating system. In order to avoid this, we can add the advanced VM parameter device hot plug with a value of false. This is a good example of potential issue which is discovered based on that data collected from Horizon and from vSphere. If we move to the findings tab, which contains all objects and their findings which are contributing to this particular issue, here we can see what's in fact being reported. From Horizon, we know that the template VMs, which the desktop pools are using to provision new virtual desktops, And also we have all Horizon managed virtual machines. So here we can see that these particular desktop pools are using template VM, which doesn't have this particular parameter set. So when we provision virtual desktop from this template, the end user might be able to remove their network card or some other device. Would also show if there are already virtual machines which are provisioned and doesn't have this particular settings set. Here probably it's a good place to mention that if some best practice security rule or whatever issue is too strict or is not applicable for your environment, you can easily ignore it from the bottom right here. You can be very granular in the on which objects you want to filter this. You may want to filter it for the whole Horizon connection or just for some specific pools or for some specific virtual machines where you don't want to be alerted if that's a problem. As part of the best practices, we also cover the interoperability between Horizon and vCenter server. We'll warn you if you're using Horizon vCenter pair that are not listed as compatible, and also we'll show you if there is a higher Horizon version to which you could upgrade and still be compatible with the vCenter servers which you have added in Horizon. This is the best practice right here. So if I go to Findings tab, I can see that I have in this particular case Horizon 7.5, but based on the versions of the vCenter servers which this Horizon is connected to, I can safely upgrade to the latest one, which is 7.7. Here is even a link to the release notes of that version. In this case, it's 7.7. So you can read, review, and perform the upgrade. As I mentioned before, we can also perform analysis just on data from Horizon. This is one of the cases. This KB explains that users might be unable to access their desktops through the BLAST protocol. This particular issue is resolved on Horizon version 7.4. So if you go to the Findings tab, we can see that we have connection server before the one where this issue is resolved, and we have a desktop pool with HTML status enabled. So we covered the symptom section of the KB. Therefore, this knowledge base article is marked as applicable and shown to you. Another case, quite interesting, is where the issue is actually on the entirely on vSphere level. So in this particular case, there might be an issue when deploying from a template which is connected to ephemeral port binding port group which is using ephemeral port binding. This particular issue affects vCenter server 6.0 before update 3C. So based on the fact that we can correlate your Horizon and vSphere configuration, we are able to detect that. And here on the findings, I can see that this particular pool is using a source VM connected to ephemeral port group, and the parent port group is VDI-V15. And this particular desktop pool provisions on vCenter server prior update 3C. and this is exactly the one which I have reported in here. We have many other best practices or knowledge-based articles which we're scanning against. If you go to the best practice view, for example, you can again filter by product. You can see all the best practices which are failing, but here you can see also those which are passing. With that said, I think I covered the Horizon specific parts. I'll hand over to Stan if there are any outstanding questions in the Q&A.
There's no questions on the Q&A at this point, but if you can switch back to the presentation, we have there the we have our email address, innovate@runecast.com, and you have the EVO's GitHub space as well, or you can check out our blog where we're posting some technical articles there from time to time, or follow us on Twitter. You have our Twitter handles here. This session is recorded and it will be sent to all of you, everybody that's registered. So again, if you have any questions, drop us an email. I encourage you to all go to runecast.com and try our product. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.